Good afternoon. This is Dr. Mac Adkins, the President of Smarter Services. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this webinar titled Getting the Most Out of SmarterMeasure, the Learning Readiness Indicator. And we are glad that you're here today. This webinar is designed for an audience of persons who are our current clients, so we consider you all family, and we're glad that you're sitting down with us this afternoon. What we will be sharing with you is some information that we truly hope that you find useful. It's several pieces of information about how you can really maximize or get the most out of the SmarterMeasure assessment engine. I recently bought a new car. Well, it's not new to me, but it was new to someone. In fact, I'm the third person that it's new to. But when you get a different vehicle, you know there are so many bells and whistles, and you underutilize those things. There are so many things on the dash that I'm not sure what they do. I need to sit down and take time to read the manual. But you know what? We just don't read the manual, do we? And similar to that vehicle is the SmarterMeasure assessment engine. There are several things that it can do that you're probably just not aware of. So we thank you for taking the time this afternoon to allow us to spend some time to chat with you and share with you some information about what all the assessment engine can do. I did an audio check just a few moments ago, but to make me feel better that I know you're hearing me, if you can raise your hand again if you're hearing this, that will confirm that this audio is going out to everyone. And so there should be a raise hand icon. Okay, there I see several hands going up, so that is good. Thank you for confirmation. A few housekeeping items as we get started. All of your lines are muted with this being a webinar. Toward the end of the call, we will try to open the lines for some of you if you have questions. I need to say that my right-hand person is not with us today. Our Vice President of Marketing, Julie Owen, usually does a fantastic job of hosting these webinars. Regrettably, she had a death in her family this week, so she's not in the office. So we're trying to do this on our own. She is the expert with this software and knows really well how to use it, and I am not the expert. So that's why I'm a little bit anxious to confirm that you hear my audio. But what I will do is move through the content of this presentation today. If you have some questions, you may want to make a note of those. You could submit them via the chat box. I'm not quite sure that I know how to interpret or how to view all of those questions. But toward the end of the presentation, I do want to give you the opportunity to ask a question. The way that I think we will do that is that if you have a question, I will have you to click that raise hand icon. At that point, I will attempt to turn your audio on so that you can ask the questions to the group, and then we will respond for the benefit of the group. So we do want this to have input from you, but we will reserve that input until the end. At the end of this webinar, you will receive a thank you message. It will have an invitation to complete a post-webinar survey that we encourage you to do. That will allow us to know who all was at the webinar, and we will send you some information, including a document that we will refer to throughout the webinar, which is called Getting the Most Out of SmarterMeasure. Our agenda for this afternoon, I intend to talk maybe for 45 minutes about the information that we've collected, and then I really would like to hear from you about questions that you might have, or there may be some other ways that your school has used the assessment and the assessment engine that you would like to share as a good practice. So be thinking about that, and I do hope that I can make this technology work and enable you to share that information. Most of you on the call today are our current clients, but we are archiving this call today, and so there may be people later who will listen to this who are not clients, or there could be some prospective clients on the phone today. So I'll take just a moment and tell you a little bit of background. Our company is Smarter Services. We've been around now for over a decade. We have over 400 colleges and universities as clients. We serve over 300,000 students and faculty per year, and we provide 4 different services in the distance learning market space. Those services are the SmarterMeasure Learning Readiness Indicator that you're aware of. We also provide Smarter Surveys, which is our end-of-course assessment tool. So if your school is looking at improving its practice about the way that you collect satisfaction data from students, I really wish you would allow us to show you what that software can do. We have some proprietary things that allow us to control for bias, and we also have things such as being able to distribute the surveys by mobile platforms. So we would really love to share with you more about Smarter Surveys. We also have Smarter Faculty, which is a searchable database of over 12,000 people who are available to teach online courses. So for example, if you need someone with a PhD in biology who has taught online for 4 years using Blackboard. You can put in those criteria and the system will pull up a list of people who meet those criteria. So it's a very efficient, effective way to find qualified, experienced online faculty. And our newest service is called Smarter Proctors, which is a database of people to proctor high-stakes exams. So if you're interested in any of those other services, please let us know, and we'll be glad to share information with you. Just for those who may not be as familiar with what SmarterMeasure is, it is an assessment that quantifies a student's level of readiness for studying online. It's been used by over 400 colleges and universities and taken by almost 1.7 million students now. What does it measure? It measures constructs in 3 areas. First of all, it measures things that are internal to the learner. We call these individual attributes such as motivation, procrastination, willingness to ask for help, locus of control, those things that almost define the learner's personality. Also on the internal side would be learning styles, and that's based on the multiple intelligences model. So that's whether one is visual, verbal, social, solitary, those things. Then in addition to those internal things that describe the learner, you know, if you read the research about, retention in higher education, so many times students drop out or stop out, not because of it's not a good fit for them or not because of dissatisfaction with the school, but simply because life happens. And so we measure data that we call life factors. And this is really an environmental scan of what's going on in the person's life. How much time do they have available to study? Do they have a dedicated place to study? Do they have support from their family, support from their employers? How about their finances and even their general health? So it's an environmental scan of what's happening in their life. Not necessarily that you as a school can control or change what's happening in their life, but that you can allow the student to go into the experience with their eyes wide open, well aware of what's happening in their life and how that could impact them as a student. As one of our clients recently put it, you cannot change a tiger's stripes, but you can teach that tiger to hunt in a different environment. And so by using this assessment to help the students, your tigers, understand the internal and the external things that are a part of them, you can really help them hunt in the online learning environment. And then in addition to the internal and external factors, we collect a set of skills, looking at a person's technology skills, their typing skills, and their reading skills. So the full assessment is a combination of a skills test, environmental factor, and then environmental scan, I could say, and then some internal factors as well. What makes SmarterMeasure special? Well, there are so many things in it you can customize, and I'll be saying much about that this afternoon. It is a very, very useful student service to help students understand things about themselves. It's a very useful form of aggregate data about your students, and I'll be saying much about that in just a moment. For you as a school, it identifies students who are at risk of not doing well for you to be able to support them. And for students, it really empowers them to understand themselves as they go into the learning experience. And finally, it's a solution that's kind of unique in the market space, and so we think it's really a truly a valuable service. So what I will be doing for the next few moments is I'm going to share with you 15 ideas or 15 words that we think can help you make the most out of SmarterMeasure. Don't panic because I'm going to spend a lot of time on the first 3 words. So if you look down and 30 minutes have passed and I'm still on word number 3, that's okay. I realize that. The final few words we will quickly cover, but I do want to spend quite a bit of time on the first few words. And if you will excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so I will take a drink of water here. Okay, word number 1 is to configure. There are several things that you as an institution can do to configure. You might say customize the SmarterMeasure experience for your students. To illustrate that, I'm going to switch over to the Word document, and let me use this software now to make sure you're viewing that, and it looks like you are. That's good. This is a document that your account manager can send to you, or it's also available through the administrative panel, but it really puts in writing much of what I'll be sharing with you this afternoon. But I want to go through this list of things that you can configure because kind of like that dashboard on that vehicle that I recently purchased, there are so many bells and whistles that you may not be aware of. Some different things that you can configure include the remedial resources. You know, on the score report, at the bottom of each section, there are a list of resources that the student can go to. By default, that is just a list of free web-based resources that we have identified over the last decade that we think are especially useful. However, your school may have its own internally produced resources, or perhaps you're pointing out to some publisher-produced resources, or maybe there's some websites that you're aware of that we're not aware of. You can customize the resources that are listed in that area, and in a moment I'll show you how to do these things. Also, there is text that you can put there. Maybe instead of providing the student with a list of links, perhaps you want to give the student some specific text. Maybe after the typing section, you want to say, hey, we've got a typing lab, it's in building X, and it's open from these hours. Whatever the custom message is that you would like to give to the student to help them to remediate themselves in the areas in which they're weak, you can put custom text there. Did you know that you can reorder the sections in SmarterMeasure? Maybe you don't want to offer life factors first. Maybe you want to put that toward the end. You can. I'll show you very easily how you can do that. Did you know that you can delete sections? Maybe your school says, hey, we don't want to offer the typing section. You can very easily turn that off. And you can do that by test taker groups. So if you want one group of your students to take the typing, for example, that's fine. But maybe there's another group that you do not want to take the typing component. So you can turn all of these things on and off by test taker group. Disaggregate mode may be something that's useful for you. Many times we have schools who administer SmarterMeasure in an orientation course. So say, for example, your orientation course is 3 weeks long. So maybe you want to administer 2 components of our assessment in week 1, 2 components in week 2, and 2 components in week 3. You can do that through what we call disaggregate mode. Many of our clients are concerned about the length of our assessment. It does take about 35 minutes if a student does take the full assessment at one sitting, and so we realize that can be a bit much. So by using disaggregate mode, you can release components of the assessment one at a time. And then when the student logs back in or they come back in through single sign-on, the student will go back to where they left off. The system manages that for them. There are several sections that have options. For example, in the reading section, you can choose between 7 or 8 different reading passages that are lexiled at different levels. For the, I believe it's the learning styles section, we have like a 35-item instrument and maybe about a 24-item instrument. I'm not sure on those exact numbers, but we do have some options there of longer and shorter versions of some sections of the assessment. Demographic variables. By default, we do collect several demographic points, but your school may choose to opt out of those. You can simply turn those off. We do, by default, present the students on their score report with a table where the students' individual scores are compared to the national averages. Most of our clients find that useful, but there are some clients who choose not to do that. You can simply turn that feature off if you want. There are different modes by which you can release the results of the assessment. By default, the student automatically gets a copy of their score report once they complete it. But perhaps you're using SmarterMeasure maybe in your enrollment process, and you would prefer for an enrollment counselor or a guidance counselor to be able to first talk about the student score report before they see it. You can actually delay the delivery of the score report until later, and you've got 2 or 3 different options for how you can do that. There are different types of logins. By default, it's a username and password, but you can use single sign-on. So if your student is signing on through a learning management system, or if your student is authenticating through a web portal or a student information system, if there's some other third-party system where your students are frequently logging in, that system can talk to our system, and your student will not have to re-authenticate to take our assessment. Hidden on client list, if you go to SmarterMeasure.com, you'll see a long list of hundreds of schools which are using the assessment. Some schools, because of privacy or marketing reasons, prefer not to be listed on client lists of third-party software. If you want to turn your school off on that list, we respect that choice, and you have ability to do that. Exporting data, you can export subscale and scale level data using the administrative panel. You also have at your availability question level data, but at this point you have to request that for us because we will manually export that from the database on our side. But using the administrative interface, you can export all of your data at the subscale and scale level. Account requested data is what we call questions that you want to ask. Frequently, clients ask us, hey, can we change the assessment? Well, we really discourage that because we try to keep it nationally normed. At the end of the summer of every year, we produce the National Student Readiness Report, where we look at data in aggregate across hundreds of institutions. To be able to do that, we need to keep the question set standardized. But we do recognize that you as an institution may have other questions that you would like to ask your student, and you may find it a convenient time to ask your student those questions while they are taking this assessment. So you can add up to 100 of your own objective question types, all of the different objective question types or open-ended or, Likert type questions. You can add those. And then finally, another form of customization that we really encourage schools to do is to change their readiness ranges. As you know, we categorize students in the administrative view by their levels of readiness, whether that's a high level of readiness, medium level of readiness, or low levels of readiness. Have you ever wondered how we came up with those cut points? Well, by default, the cut points are based on the distribution of the national score set. However, your school probably has, unique dimensions of your own students. And so what we really encourage schools to do is to look at the distribution of the scores of their students and then to recalibrate or reset those cut points. And I'll show you in a moment where you can do that. And so when you do that, it really makes SmarterMeasure a much stronger predictor of student success. We even have a document that you can request from your account manager, which is called Making SmarterMeasure a Stronger Predictor of Academic Success. And in that document, we walk you through not only how to technically use our interface, but also how to use a statistical process, analysis of variance, to look at the distribution of your scores compared to a key performance indicator, such as grades, to be able to determine for your student set where are the most appropriate cut points. If you need help doing that, let us know. That's what we're here for, because we really want the assessment to be as valuable to you as possible. What I'm going to do now is jump over and show you a few things. Let's see. I am logged into the administrative database here. Many of you on the call probably have administrative rights, so you log in, you see something similar. I'm logged into just a sample account, so this is not real data from any school. And I want to walk you through this because the administrative interface was recently totally redesigned, and so there are many bells and whistles in here that you may not be aware of. When you log in administratively, first of all, you'll see a list here of several students that have recently taken the assessment. You can click on that student's name and it will pull up their score report. So that's good if you're in a mode where you're frequently communicating with students who have recently taken the assessment. When you go under Manage Account, well, this is where I've logged out. So let me log back in here. For security reasons, our software will time out if there's not activity. So let me get logged back in there. So then if you go to Manage Account, this is the area where you can do many of those items of configuration that I just mentioned. First of all, did you realize that you're presented with metrics here that will show your levels of usage as far as the number of tests started and the number of tests completed over a period of time? That's also put into two different charts where you can see the percentage of your students who are completing the full assessment and those who are just completing parts of it. Account information is where you can update just contact information for your account. Account settings contains many of those points that I just mentioned, where you can change like the username and password, hidden on the client list, different things like that. Here's where you change several of those ethnicity questions, whether or not you want to push the ethnicity field or not, or the gender field or not. You can just turn those on and off. So there's several different things where you can customize some remedial text there at the bottom. Subscription details is a place where you can get access to information about your account if you want to find out, what your terms are there. The assessment groups is an important area. I'll log into here. And your school may not be taking advantage of the assessment groups. We have several schools who just put all students in one group, but you can parse them out into several different groups. Maybe you want to group it by freshman and junior and sophomore, those things, or maybe you have different groups by majors, or however it's best for your school to categorize your students. You can do that by setting up different groups for each of them. And then for the different groups, you have different levels of permission that you can give about different things within the administrative interface. And then when you get into the assessment area, I'll drill down into one of these as an example. And this is where you can go in and change some things about the way the assessment is delivered. So let's say, first of all, for life factors, that you've looked at your data, and by default, students who score below a 70 are indicated at high or low levels of readiness. Students who score above an 85 are at high levels of readiness. Those in the middle are medium, and then 70 or below are low levels of readiness. Well, maybe you want to lower the bar there a little bit. So you just simply click that slider and drag it back. You could also do the same thing just by changing the numerical value there. So that is how you can change the readiness ranges, and you can do that per, the test taker group. So maybe for your graduate students, you want to raise the bar, but perhaps for incoming undergraduate students, you want to lower the bar. So you can do that. So let's suppose that you want to give the individual attributes section before life factors. Well, you just click it and drag it up, and that reorders the section. Or maybe you say, we don't want to offer the typing. You just click on it and drag it to the bottom, and that takes out the typing. So as simple as that, you can reorder sections, you can delete sections, you can change the readiness ranges for those sections. This is where you do different things about changing disaggregate or sequential, showing the national averages. And again, I'm quickly going over these, which is almost like a salesperson showing me the buttons in the car. I don't expect you to remember all of this from this brief overview, but notice that at the top of your administrative panel, you're shown a beautiful picture of your account manager. And all of our account managers are listening in this afternoon, and so they're here for you. If you've got a question about how to use some of this functionality that you're becoming aware of this afternoon, contact them. There's their email. They're sitting there. They're waiting to hear from you. The contacts is just the people at your school that we can contact about different things, and we really encourage you to keep that up to date, especially if someone at your school leaves and goes to another school. Please update that so that we can know who to contact at your institution. Account requested data, these are the custom questions that you can add. It's very easy just to click create, and it will walk you through an interface where you choose the question type, whether that's multiple choice or date or open-ended text, whatever. You type in the questions and different things about how you want to configure that question and click save, and that will be a custom question that's posed to your student. This is the area where you can customize the resources for support. So for example, under the learning styles, these are the resources we list. Maybe you want to delete one of those. Well, you just click delete, and that one is gone. Or you may want to add some other ones. So you just click to add a resource, and you put in the title, the details about it, and the link that you want to place to it. So it's very easy to customize those remedial links that we're providing. It could be, let me go back to this screen, that it could be that you want to update the interface. And this is a point where you can change much of the wording about the assessment. The wording that you present to the students up front before they take the assessment is very, very, very important, because we want your students to understand that this is not a high-stakes assessment. This is an assessment that we want them to be truthful about, because the more truthful they are, the better it will diagnose them, and the better you can help them be successful. So you may want to change this language about how you describe the assessment. You may be surprised to hear that while we call it the SmarterMeasure Learning Readiness Indicator, you may think that's too much of a mouthful for your students. So we're fine with you white labeling this thing. If you want to call it the Green Valley Community College Great Student Assessment, you can do that. And here's where you can change that wording as it's presented to your student. So it's all these are different dialog boxes where you can change the different types of text that's presented to the student about the assessment. So all of that is under that larger heading of configuring. And again, I sent much information to you there, and I encourage you to take a look at it and to communicate with your account manager about how you can do some of that. So after configuring it, the next thing that you may want to do is to analyze some of the data. Okay. And there are several different groups of people on your campus who may be interested in the data that you get. For example, your faculties may be really interested in what are the learning styles, the life factors of your students. Your IT group may be really interested in the levels of technology competency or the types of computer systems or the types of internet access that your students have. Maybe instructional designers are curious about the typing speeds of your students. So one of the great improvements to the administrative interface that we currently have is the type of analytics that we provide to you. So now I'm bouncing back over to the administrative panel, and I'm going to do a search here. This may be a screen that your school is already using, but we're surprised that there are many schools who are not taking advantage of this, and we think it's such a strong resource. So let me show you what this looks like. It's what I call the at-a-glance view. So suppose that your school is using this where that students, as they're coming into the program, excuse me, are taking the assessment. So you've got a guidance counselor or someone talking with the student about their scores. Well, maybe that guidance counselor is working with a caseload of 100 students coming in. This view allows them to graphically, at a glance, see which students are at risk in what area. Again, this is not real student data. These are just people that we've demoed the product to, and these are just, they're just taking the test, just trying it. They're not real students. But if these were real students and you looked at Lene Vaughn, she's at a high level of readiness for everything, so not too much concern there. But look at this guy right here, Mac Adkins. I can tell you from personal experience that he's at low levels of readiness. And so if you wanted to understand more, you can go to a quick view, and it will open up and show you the quantitative measurements there that indicated what level of readiness they're in. You can say many other things about what group they were in, that sort of thing. If you're on the phone or if this person is sitting in front of you, you can click right here and you'll go to their full report where you can see information about it. Perhaps you're talking with that student and you'd like that student to understand where their test taking compares to other students at the school and other students within their group. So from here, what you see in this report is the line is the person's score compared to the school averages. And over here you can see it numerically. And so the school mean would be the mean of all students at your institution. The assessment mean would be, you might think of it in terms of test taker groups. So if you've parsed your students into different groups, this would allow you to compare this individual student score to those in the group and to all students at your school. So this is a very, very useful view for guidance counselors or for people who are facilitating orientation courses to go in and look at this data and talk with the student about how they compare in relationship to the other students. Now, suppose that you're not looking at the data just for a single student, but you want to make some more sense out of your students as a whole. So in this new version, we've gone into our interface and we've made it very, very easy for you to run descriptive statistics for yourself. Many of you used to have to do this manually. You'd have to export data and then put it in Excel or put it in SPSS and take a look at the data that way. But we really want you to understand the distribution of your students' scores, so we make it very easy for you just to set the date range of the students you want to look at, and then it's going to pull up several different things about the students in that date range. First of all, it will just give you the demographic analytics of all of the different demographic things, so you can tell, by gender or by how many courses they've taken, the age range distribution, ethnicity distribution, and again, this is all just sample data, but for your group of students that you search by, it can be useful to see this at a glance. In addition to the demographic views, here are measures of central tendency for each part of the assessment. First of all is an overview. So the light blue is the mean. So if this is a group of students in my orientation course, I can tell that it's reading there that they're having most of the problem with. But technical competency is not much of a problem. And then you can drill down into each one. So for life factors, then it goes into each of the subscales. So I can tell that time has the lowest mean. And so then below it, it provides you with the mean, median, mode, standard deviation, and variance. All of that is done automatically for you for all of our subscales. So that can be tremendously valuable if you're looking at the distribution of your scores as a whole, especially if you want to adjust the readiness ranges, which is where I'm going to now. This is a view that imagine you're an enrollment counselor at a school, and you've done this search by all students in the last month who have applied. And you want to see where are the problems among our students in regard to this issue of learner readiness. Well, for this group of students, about 60 students, life factors is the big problem. There are about 60% of those students are in the low level of readiness category for life factors. Individual attributes would be lower than that, than 45. So this would be very, very useful maybe if you are designing the curriculum of your orientation course so that you want to decide, I'm really going to hit hard on the life factors, not so much on the technical problems. And so these are all data views that are now available to you at a click within the administrative panel. As a researcher, I'm super excited about making this data available to you, and we want you to take use of it. So I'm glad to be able to show you those bells and whistles that were on the dashboard. Now, I told you not to worry if I'm running out of time on the first three, and so those were the two that I was planning to spend the most time on. So let me say a few more things about some of the other ways that you can get the most out of SmarterMeasure. The next one is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I tend to be the academic in the group, and I work with schools as they're doing research on their data. And so this pyramid is kind of the way I see the evolution of schools looking at their data and using their SmarterMeasure data. The base way that we want this data used is as a beneficial student service to the individual student. That's what we want to see happen. We want an individual person to be benefited after having taken the assessment. That's at the base level. Now, after you've had hundreds of individual students do that, you may wonder, I wonder, what my scores are looking like among those 100 students. That's where the descriptive statistics come in, and that's what we've automated for you in those views that I just showed you. Well, after you've looked at your descriptive statistics, then many of our clients want to start comparing their data between different groups. Maybe they want to know if their undergraduates have different levels of readiness than their graduates, or maybe they want to compare by age groups, or there's some other comparison that's meaningful to them as a school. After they do that, then many schools want to do correlation type research. They're wondering, what is the relationship between these factors of incoming student readiness and key performance indicators such as grades? So they'll look at those correlations, and when those correlations are strong, then they're like, wow, we could put this data into a predictive model so that we can best understand which students are at a higher likelihood to succeed. We have several of our clients, especially some of our larger for-profit clients, that do use this learner readiness data in their lead scoring as a predictive metric. And so that's kind of an advanced thing that your school may need to grow toward, but certainly it's something that many of our clients are doing. As you're thinking about doing research with your SmarterMeasure scores, the first thing that often comes to mind is, what's the relationship with grades? And that's great. Do that comparison, because we frequently see statistically significant correlations, especially between life factors and individual attributes. But I encourage you not to stop with grades, because there are several other performance indicators of your students that often strongly correlate with the readiness information. Those things include engagement. How engaged are your students in the courses? And that can easily be measured with data from your learning management system. How about measures of satisfaction, excuse me, which could be data that you get from your end-of-course surveys, or retention data when you're looking at your retention rates. Maybe you want to get qualitative feedback from your students where you ask them about what they thought about their levels of readiness. Or maybe you want to compare across different groups in your school, or maybe benchmark against other schools. If this conversation has got you thinking, and I hope it has, about different ways you can make use of your full data set, I encourage you to go to SmarterMeasure.com, click on the Research tab, and you'll see a page that looks like this. And then when you scroll down this table, this screen capture is not showing all of it, but there's going to be 8 or 10 ideas there of different ways you can do research. And we encourage you to do that. We encourage schools to do it. As you're thinking about doing a research project, there are really 3 different approaches that we've seen schools take, 3 different levels, if you may. Some do the research internally, and that's great. This is your data. We encourage you to do it. But there are many schools who say, look, we don't really understand all of the statistical analysis, or we don't have the time to do that. And in those cases, we as the company can assist you in doing that. For small projects, we may just be, willing to, we value you as a customer, and we may be able to do that at no charge. But if the project is a little bit larger, there may be some time that we need to ask for, compensation for, but we just judge that on a case-by-case basis. There are some of our clients who really wanted to take a super deep dive in their analysis, and there is a third-party research firm. They're called Applied Measurement Associates. They're very familiar with our data. They're a group of professional statisticians and psychometricians, and they can work with you on projects, especially maybe if you're wanting to build a predictive model or do something really sophisticated like that. They can assist you. So at whatever level you want to do the research, we are here to help you do that. So, okay, those are my first 3. I told you I'd spend a lot of time on those. I've been talking now about 38 minutes, so for the next 10 minutes, we're going to move through several more, and these conversations won't be as long for each one. So here are some other ways that you can get the most out of SmarterMeasure. First of all, dress it up. Take a look at your custom user interface. Just go to whatever the subdomain is, .smartermeasure.com. See what it looks like. It may be that your school has changed its logo, or maybe it's changed its colors, or maybe you've redesigned your distance learning website, or maybe you've adopted some textbook that you want it to look like, or maybe you're just ready for a new look. Let us know. That's what we're here for. We've got a graphical designer that can design your custom user interface to really look the way you want it to look. And so we want your students to understand this is a service that your school is providing. So if you'd like to freshen up your custom user interface, let your account manager know. We'll be glad to help. Excuse me. Next is plan. Plan for the right way to use this. Your school may have been using this for the same way for several years, and maybe it's time to think about a different way. The 3 most common ways that we see schools using it is in an orientation course for all new students, maybe in the admissions process, or maybe in the recruiting process. Or perhaps your school has identified even a different way to use it. But talk with your account manager about good practices that they've seen at other schools. We want you to use this thing as much as you can. And so if there are other models, perhaps there's another model that can be beneficial to your institution. Next, this is something I feel strongly about, and that's, if at all possible, have someone at your school discuss their SmarterMeasure results with the student. Now, I understand that some schools, they have very, very large programs, and it may not be possible to have that one-to-one communication with their students. And if so, then, work within that context. But if your school has an admissions officer or a person who's facilitating the online course or someone else who can talk with them, please do so. The analogy that I often use for that is that of a thermometer. I have 2 children, and I can tell when they're getting sick. So I take out a thermometer and I measure their temperature. If it's a 99, I give them some Tylenol. If it's a 105, well, I'm taking them to the pediatrician. So should I, as a parent, feel good about the fact that I used a thermometer? Well, maybe. But what I really need to feel good about is the fact that I used the data from the thermometer to take appropriate action with my children. Well, should you as a school feel good about the fact that you're using SmarterMeasure? Absolutely. But don't stop there. What you really need to feel good about is the fact that you are using that data from SmarterMeasure to benefit that individual student. So whatever your use case is, I strongly encourage you to try to get someone who's logging into the administrative interface, who's seeing those levels of readiness that I showed you, and is following up with the students who are at low levels of readiness. I promise you, if a student takes this assessment and then they get a call or a text or an email from someone at your school that says, hey, we'd like to talk with you about your level of readiness, that's where you'll see strong gains in your retention. Some other ways that you can make the most out of SmarterMeasure is to leverage it. Many of you have things that are going on with your accreditation agencies or other constituents that you're accountable to, and you have to document that you are doing everything you can to help your students be successful. Well, make sure that as you're having students develop their QEPs or you're providing tutoring or whatever it is that you're doing, that you leverage your SmarterMeasure data to assist in those processes. So many times, SmarterMeasure may have been purchased by a distance learning division of a college, but really it can also be used deeply by the institutional effectiveness or the student affairs division. So make sure that you're leveraging it across the enterprise. Another way you can make the most out of it is to join different groups. There are several different statewide organizations that we have clients within those states. They'll have conferences where there are user groups that get together, and we encourage you to reach out to others who are around you. Some statewide consortia even have negotiated discounts, so you may be able to save some money if you get several of your friends together. This one is something that's very important. As I said earlier, our account managers are listening in today. They are here to help you. If there's something that's said today that's got you thinking about a way you can use it better, talk to them. Talk to your account manager. That's what they're here for, to help you make the most out of this. And we try not to bombard you with too many newsletters and emails. We know you're busy, but you're going to periodically get a newsletter from us about new features that we have, new things we can do. I know it's just one more thing in your day, but please take 3 minutes, read that newsletter, keep up with what's going on with the product and with the company. Another way you can make use of it is to record what your students think about it. There may be some sort of satisfaction survey that you give to your students, or maybe you just ask these kind of questions to your students about what they thought about SmarterMeasure. Would they recommend it to other students? Did it influence their decision about which courses to take or what delivery systems to take their courses in? Because in today's climate, budgets are tight. And we know you are only going to spend money on services that are really, truly being beneficial to your students. And so we encourage you, ask your students, what do they think about this assessment? Was it useful to them? Did it accurately diagnose them? We have confidence that they're going to like it, and so we encourage you to ask them, and then you can use that information to continue to justify using this resource. Another way you can make the most out of it is to improve it. This assessment has been around for over a decade, and I'm telling you, the evolution of all of the functionality you've seen has come because clients just like you have said, hey, we'd love for it to be able to do this. So if you just go to smarterservices.com and then click on Feature Request, you'll see a form there that you can fill out, and you tell us about an improvement you'd like to see. Now, can you expect it tomorrow? Probably not. We've got a long queue of improvements that we're working on. But if it's something we think will help all of our clients, we'll eventually get around to it. If it's something that you really, really, really need soon, then we have a thing that's called custom programming, that it's $150 an hour. We'll give you a proposal of how many hours we think it will take. And so if there's functionality that you really need, then we can speed that up in our development process. Integrate it. You may or may not know that we have integrations with Blackboard, with eCollege. We have APIs that can allow data to be passed back and forth between any learning management system, between any student information system, and we really, really, really encourage you to do that because that allows you to do things like single sign-on so your students don't have to re-authenticate. In the case of like Blackboard and eCollege, it allows the completion percentage to be passed back to the grade book. So if you'd like to know how to integrate this into other third-party systems, let us know. Promote it. Many schools, Middlesex Community College in Connecticut comes to mind. They do a great job of creating a culture among their students that lets the student know that they are concerned about their success, that they are concerned about their levels of readiness. So, consider everything from posters on your campus to emails to course room announcements, anything you can do to build buzz about the assessment to get as many students as possible taking it. We encourage you to participate in training. I realize now that I'm talking to the choir. We're 45 minutes into a boring webinar, that if you're still listening to me, you're really interested in this. So I know you're the kind of person that wants as much training as you can get. So if you'll log into the administrative panel, in fact, let me jump over there and just show you where this is, because you may not be familiar with where it is in the new admin panel. But when you go to the admin panel and you go to resources, there are 3 different links. One is supporting documents, where here there are several documents that we've put together. Right here, getting the most out of SmarterMeasure. That's a document that has the content of today's call. Several of the documents you can get there. There are tutorials. There's a lot of bells and whistles that I've shown you today. Maybe you need to know about how to access those analytics that we showed you. Well, you click right there. There's going to be a narrated video pop up that walks you through it. And then the final area there were feature requests. That will link you out to that form, so that if you want to suggest something to improve it, you can do that. So that's all under the administrative panel. So that's about training, and we're almost done. Okay, another thing you can do to make the most out of SmarterMeasure is to refer us to another client. We've got a referral service. If you just go to Smarter Services, our company website, click Referrals. If you know another school that you think could benefit from this, you put in their information, you put in your information, that will flag you in our sales system as being the referrer, and when your friend signs up, guess what you get? 2 Benjamins. That's right. There's your Christmas account right there. You get $200 for any referrals that actually sign up as a new client. So that's all I had to say. What I would like to do now is have a moment for sharing of other potential good practices. This is the point where I'm really missing Julie, my right-hand person here. She's very good at presenter control and those sorts of things. So I'm going to an area here where I can see the attendee list. If you have a comment or a question, you should see an icon that looks like a little raise your hand. If you will click that, I will try to turn your audio on. So the first one there I see is a Cora, or I see Connie Brewer. So Connie, I'm turning your audio on. Connie, try to talk to us. Let's see if we can hear you. I'm going to try to turn off mute all, maybe. Well, okay, I've lowered all hands. So if you have a question, raise your hand again, and I'll try to turn your audio on. All right, Richard, I'm trying to turn you on. Okay, Richard, can you speak now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Great, I can hear you. If others of you can hear Richard, raise your hand, and that'll make me feel good. Okay, Richard, I think we're hearing you. Super. So share with us your idea or your question.
My question was about the readiness ranges, and how did you determine at what level the default is? So I've looked at those, and I don't know enough for our, I'm not sure if I know enough to change those and what would be best for our students. So I was just curious as how you determine what the default would be, and that's where I've left them so far.
Okay, great. Yeah, the default was literally every year when we produce the National Student Readiness Report, we look at data from about 300,000 students across all types of institutions. We just do the distribution of scores, which is typically a bell curve, and then we go out about 1.5 standard deviations from the mean, and that's where we set, you know, the high levels of readiness and the low levels of readiness. That procedure, as being as accurate as it can be, may not be best for your school. We serve everything from technical colleges to PhD programs. And so what we encourage you to do, and what I can help you do, is look at the distribution of your scores, and then there may be a theoretical or a philosophical decision that you want to look at. Do you want to, do you want to say, maybe I want to group my students by thirds, so that a full 1/3 is low level and a full 1/3 is medium and a full 1/3 is high. We can divide it up that way. Or maybe you want to say, I only want, 15% of my students to be at high, and I want to know what's the 30% of my students who are really at risk. And so you decide kind of where you want those cut points to be, maybe based on a percentage of students, and we can set the cut points there. So really the best thing to do is to go into the descriptive analytics that I showed you, look to see where, what the distribution of your scores look like, and see how close those cut points would be to the where it changes. There's also that document that's in the admin panel about making the most, or making it a smarter predictor if you kind of want to get a little bit more advanced and do analysis of variance with some student success factor like grades, so that you take a group of students who's taken the assessment, you pair that with their grades, and you use analysis of variance to look at your variance between and within the groups, and you determine where those cut points could be, so that it's a predictor, so that students who made high grades are the students who are at high levels of readiness, and the students who made low grades are the students at low levels of readiness. You can set it that way. So there's 2 or 3 different approaches. And my email's there on the screen. If you need me to engage with you academically, I'll be glad to help. Does that answer your question, or would you like further clarification? Okay. I'm going to lower all hands, and if you have a question now, raise your hand again, and I'll switch to you. Okay, so if you'd like to make a comment or have a question, there's Lisa. So, all right, Lisa, I've turned on your audio. Can you speak?
Okay,
to
can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I think we can.
Well, I typed my question in there already, but I will rephrase it here so everybody sees it. I'm wondering if we can integrate the data from SmarterMeasure into PeopleSoft. Our registration system is PeopleSoft, and that's where a lot of the data is kept for our students. And to compare their academic success with how they did on this software, would be nice if it was all in one place. Then when the advisors want to go look, they've got all that in one location. They're not trying to sign on to a variety of places. Is that something that can be done?
Absolutely, and thank you for asking that question, because that indicates you're wanting to make your data useful across the enterprise, which is exactly what we encourage. What I would encourage you to do is go to the SmarterMeasure website, which you should be viewing on our screen now. Under the About tab, there is a section called Integration. And there's a lot of information here that quickly gets over my head, but basically we have open APIs, which means that any data point from our system can be passed backwards to any system that you have. We've worked with PeopleSoft and DataTel, any of those, because it's just transfer of data. It has to get kind of our IT group and your IT group in a conversation, but that's a 20-minute conversation because they know what they're talking about, where they're just opening a door for us. It can be done by a push or a pull. If we need to automatically push data to your system, say every day or every month, or even in real time, we can do that. Or maybe if you want to pull data from our system, maybe at the end of every semester or whatever census date you have, it can be done that way. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is there's several options, and these are APIs that are free that you can use. If you need some assistance from our technical group, we're here, custom programming rates is $150 an hour, but typically setting up an integration is something that they can do without assistance from us.
Okay, well, and I see you've got Blackboard there, and you mentioned that, because we're looking at requiring this starting possibly with this fall, so we can really get some true data, and we're designing an orientation online that would be possibly through Blackboard. We're not sure yet. We're working on that. But it'd be great, even integrating with Blackboard would be helpful, because we wanted to find a way that data could be there, that the advisors can use it, and that we can see that they took the testing and you know, anybody that we need to have look at it can see it. So.
Okay. Lisa, which school are you with?
Right now we've got a double sign-in where basically our advisors go in separately, but they found it very useful for students that are struggling to say, well, I see that, you know, it looks like you were having some problems with your reading comprehension on this. Here's some places you can go for that. And we have found it very helpful, but we want to integrate to make it as user-friendly as we can for everybody.
Good, good. Lisa, which school are you with?
Well, Ohio University.
Okay. Well, our account managers are listening, and whoever's with you will reach out to you and share much more with you about Blackboard integration. It's really slick. The student authenticates into Blackboard so they don't have to relog into our assessment. The assessment can be pushed within the learning space of Blackboard, so within your orientation, you just have it as an assignment. Take this assessment. They click that link. It never leaves Blackboard. They take it. Then the data can be passed back to the gradebook as a completion percentage that shows you, you know, if once they've done the full assessment, it's 100% completion. So there's several things there that can make it a more seamless experience for your students.
Okay, fantastic.
Super. All right, I'm clearing the hand, so if you have another question or comment, raise your hand and we'll switch over to you. Okay. Well, thank you all for your patience this afternoon, and it's almost the top of the hour, and I do respect your time, but I hope that this conversation has prompted some thoughts about other ways you can use it. Reach out to your account manager. That's what they're there for, and they'll be glad to walk you through specifically what we can do, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.